So even if I had done this a week ago and now I'm doing it all over again, people are different. I'm different.
Risk is something that we can kind of predict, but in uncertainty, we actually don't even know the thing that could happen. I talk about all the great ideas that die in the shower because people kind of just walk around and don't rock the boat. One is they kind of take a damn the torpedoes. And then the opposite side of the teeter-totter is the one that I focus actually more on because it's hidden.
Joining me today is Keith Hopper. Keith is the founder and principal of Danger Fort Labs and the creator of a LinkedIn learning course on innovation with 80,000, that's 8 with 4 zeros, learners. Keith helps leaders integrate exploration, risk-taking, and iterative learning into their jobs and lives. His Discovery Manifesto summarizes some of that process and his other learnings from working with dozens of startups and other companies. His focus is always on creating work environments that move more quickly and create smarter, happier teams. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
So even if I had happened to have done this a week ago and now I'm doing it all over again for some reason, it's a week later. People are different. I'm different. The machines we're installing on are a week older. The weather outside is different. Everything is different. And so we've never done exactly this before, which means we can never actually know what outcomes are going to be. One of the reasons I talk so much about making everything a tiny experiment is because this helps us remember that we don't know what's going to happen. We have some guesses. We may have some hopes. And all we can do is perform the experiment and then observe the outcome and then discover what we learned from that and use that to decide what experiment to run next.
I obviously agree. What you're getting at is this idea that I often talk about the difference between risk and uncertainty. I will probably be corrected either now or soon about the exact definitions, but the way that I often see it is risk is something that we can kind of predict, and there's a certain chance that it's going to happen, and there's things that we can do to mitigate or avoid or reduce or whatever the chance of that thing happening. But in uncertainty, we actually don't know. And it's not that there's this thing that could happen, and we know what it is, and we know what the chance is. It's like we actually don't even know the thing that could happen. And I think they're different, and we conflate them. For example, the example I often use is project planning. Project plans are actually a way to reduce risk. We don't often think about them this way, but the people, including myself, who really spend a lot of time and get a lot of energy from doing planning, it often is because we've developed it as a tool, and we recognize it maybe intuitively as a tool that helps us reduce and avoid risk. Because what we try to do is we try to anticipate every possible outcome. We look at all the dependencies. We try to identify all the different roles and all the different tasks. And by doing that, by going deeply into those things, we develop increasing sense of confidence and control over the situation. But guess what? That only works when we know what all the potential outcomes are, right? When we know that hey, this thing could be late, or Jane could be sick, or on the project, which could delay, or here's some of the skills that maybe we don't have. And so we can break out all those pieces. But how do you do a project plan for something that you literally don't know what could happen, particularly when you're in a highly uncertain environment? And I like your example that there's uncertainty everywhere and in everything, but I think it's also important to recognize there's some things that have a lot more uncertainty than others. For example, introducing a bold new initiative, we want to do this brand new thing, which is oftentimes what companies bring me in to help them navigate. They want to do something, they want to introduce a new product or service, or they want to launch a big new initiative, or they want to try something and they just inherently recognize that there's a ton of uncertainty associated with it. And I've worked on all sorts of stuff, everything from, an organization trying to figure out how to navigate changing, coming back to work or a hybrid work environment, right? It doesn't really feel like a big innovation, but they recognize that they have no idea what the right way to do it is. And they recognize it's potentially rife with problems because they have employees who feel differently and people maybe aren't voicing their thoughts and everybody might have different opinions. And so like, how do you do that? How do you navigate that space in a way that's sort of authentic and gets you to a good place? There's a lot of, there might be some predictable risks in there, but there's just mostly just large chunks of uncertainty. And so being able to recognize the difference and recognize that things like project planning aren't going to help you. And there's also the number of pitfalls. Project planning is one sort of concrete example. I sometimes talk about it as a teeter-totter, and that people typically fall on one side of the teeter-totter or the other when they're facing these sort of highly uncertain situations. One is they kind of take a damn the torpedoes approach, which is like, look, like we have to move. Like we can't sit around and debate something. We don't know what's going to happen, but we shouldn't let that stop us. We should go and we should take our best guess and we should go for it. And oftentimes that isn't, it might seem in some ways to be a good strategy. Let's not let us hold us back. Oftentimes it tips way over onto this side where, particularly when it gets pent up, when an organization like wants to do something, hesitates. And then one day that some leader pounds their hand on the table and says, gosh darn it, damn the torpedoes, we're just going to do this project. And they throw $20 million into it. They spend 18 months building something out, only to somewhere in there inevitably face one of the uncertainties that you're talking about. And then they realize, oh crap, like we didn't think this through. There were untested assumptions. We really should have come up with a mechanism for figuring out like whether what we were doing that was the right thing to do. And then the opposite side of the teeter-totter is the one that I focused actually more on because it's hidden, which is the one I talk about all the great ideas that die in the shower, right? So it's all the things that the organization, particularly on an individual level, might be seeing and might want to do and might have ideas to do. But because they recognize the inherent uncertainty in pursuing these things, or there's inherent risk in interpersonal risk in even mentioning them to each other, they never get mentioned. And so it's kind of the hidden cost of this. And this is actually how I feel most workplaces function, where people kind of just walk around and like don't rock the boat. Like, let's just keep the trains running on time. And so we miss this like massive opportunity to express ourselves around the things that we're curious about or we're concerned about or that we have ideas for changing and doing.